time to be the GOAT. It's time to enter God mode, man, let's get it going. I wanna be the greatest, energy is overflowing. I know I'm stoking the fire, my desire's taking over, not time.
Okay, you beautiful friends, welcome back to the back of the semi-truck, and it's that time once again. We are about to be sitting back here and going over another video in commentary mode. I know that's unusual for me to do for a video that is tackling RWBY, but this was a suggested set of series of videos that I should do in the same style that I do kind of like the Learning the Lore series I do around here. And that was what you see on the thumbnail. It's fixing the lore of RWBY. And this is a pretty hefty playlist to be going through. And most of you, if you've clicked this video to get my thoughts on what their video is going to be, most of you already know who did this. And they go by the name of Celtic Phoenix. Or Celtic Phoenix. I'm going to go with Celtic Phoenix. I know my Southernese sometimes mispronunciates words. Honestly, I know there's a couple different ways to pronunciate it, so I'm just going to go with Celtic Phoenix because that's the way I know it. But nonetheless, they did a big series on fixing RWBY, or for the algorithm, if it wants to know the letters, RWBY. But this person has done a big series on it, and this is part 1. We are going to do the whole commentary thing of stopping and pausing and commenting and all that stuff. Hopefully there's going to be enough for me to actually do my normal amount of pausing. But yeah, that's what we're about to do. We're going to be doing that commentary mode. I'm going to shut up. I'm going to go ahead and let this play through. Part 1 of this is fixing RWBY. Part 1 lore, I believe is what it was called. What I'm going to do is end up leaving a link to the playlist that I'm getting these from down in the description. Hopefully I'll remember to leave one in the comments, but I can't guarantee that. Go to the description if you want the link to the playlist that I'll be using. Well, let's go ahead and start this. Let's see how we can fix the lore of RWBY in 3, 2, 1, and play.
Why do I do this to myself?
Oh, okay.
Guys, this time, it's not water. Strap yourselves in. We're in for a ride.
Okay. Pause. Okay, so I know I'm pausing it right in the middle of the intro for the show itself, but that's not quite the opening I thought I was going to get. I get where he's going with it. Yes, it's funny if I'm watching it on my own time and stuff like that, and I'm just kind of goofing off and watching it. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that would have been a funny little skit. But considering the way I'm watching it, yeah, it kind of throws me off a little bit. But okay, we start with him saying, fine, I'll do it myself. Kind of like when Thanos put his hand in the glove and then said, fine, I'll do it myself. But this time, we got him drinking a bottle of vodka, being like, screw it, I'll fix RWBY myself. Let's continue. And play. Well, this will be copyrighted. Maybe it won't be copyrighted due to the fact that we're skipping songs. I'll shut up. Balls. Okay. So that was pretty interesting. I almost had myself in reactionary mode for a second instead of commentary mode, because we do got 2 modes on this channel. We got reactionary, where I'm sitting here and I'm watching something with y'all in real time as it's happening and I just let it play through. Then we got commentary, where I'm stopping and pausing and all that stuff. So I wanted to I was almost in that reaction mode, but no, no, I'm in commentary. But yeah, I didn't almost say something. I said something about copyright. I'll probably have some copyright on this video, and I won't be able to monetize it. But you know what? It is what it is. If I go back through all the videos that I can't monetize on this channel because of copyright, there would be hundreds. But yeah, that was a cool little fun intro for fixing RWBY, because that's the screen I got right now. It's the title card saying fixing RWBY. So that was just pure out, all and out nostalgia slash whatever you want to call it, because they've used scenes from the opening of almost every volume, with the exception, I think, volume 9. Huh. And of course, I don't think, obviously, he had volume 9 up by then and trying to fix that one. So, yeah, interesting opening. I like it. If we had this as specifically the opening and not him downing a bottle of vodka, granted, yes, I know that's funny joke, cool, get it. But if we had this as the opening for fixing RWBY, I think it would have worked a lot better as opposed to starting with him downing a bottle. Either way, though, no, what I say through this is no knock against him whatsoever. I'm not critiquing him necessarily, because I just don't like the idea of me saying what I just said, and it feels like I'm critiquing him on a personal level. I'm not doing that, obviously. I don't want to critique anybody on a personal level, because if I do that, then it's fair game to critique me on a personal level. And there's plenty to critique on me on a personal level. So either way, time to shut up. Let's let him fix RWBY. Play.
Jeez, where do I even begin with this? Alright, so I was going to be cheeky and act like I was ripping off both Belated Media and Fatman Volume with this reconstruction effort, but Christ, that got shot in the foot when I realized I'd have to divide the whole series up far more than I thought I did. You see, initially I thought I was going to just jump right into Volume 1 and how I would have gone about giving it the old tune-up. But the more I dug into how the series was flawed, the more I realized how deep the problem really lies. I had to start reworking the lore from scratch, and that started cannibalizing my time to the point that I realized I might as well make it its own fucking video. So instead of starting the story where it starts proper, I'm starting with damage control to the very elements that create the story itself. So here's the very first video on what I hope to be a helpful reconstruction of the entire series of RWBY, starting with the lore itself. Let's start with some of the small stuff right now, because there are some topics that need serious dissection, and these smaller points will probably get buried as I go along, so I might as well get them out of the way.
Pause. Okay. So, yes, commentary mode. I gotta pause and commentate and all that stuff. I want to sit here and just kind of watch it for what it is, because, of course, it's interesting. You want to be able to sit down and enjoy it for what it is, but I've got to remember, hey, put together a video here, Billy. Start thinking and pausing. But yes, we are tackling the lore itself. I know I've already said that once, I believe, but the lore itself, like just everything, the surrounding world, and maybe the elements of, like, maybe the aura, semblance, the fact that there's Grimm and Salem and Ozpin and all of these aspects. Maybe we're talking about, well, if we're going to be fixing the lore, wouldn't that mean we would have to... I actually, you know what? I don't know what he means by the lore now. I figured he was going to be talking about, like, semblances and auras and all of that stuff, but, lore means the history. So, yeah, never mind my thoughts. I thought we were going a different route, but maybe not. Let's continue. And play.
Let's start with the cross-continental transmit system. At current, it makes absolutely no sense that the entire system would go down if one tower went down, and in fact, it hasn't really played into anything that this is an element of the story. So let's just shuck that entirely. If one tower goes down, it and the surrounding area are disconnected from the network, but the network itself still stays connected. So, as Vale went down in Volume 3, Atlas, Vacuo, and Mistral are still in touch with one another because, I mean, they kind of are.
Pause. That makes sense. That there is no reason. I agree. There is zero reason for when one communication tower goes down, everything just goes down. I want to question the people behind why they chose to say that one tower goes down, they all go down, because in all reality, that doesn't make sense. Just because my neighbor doesn't have Wi-Fi doesn't mean that I don't have Wi-Fi. Maybe it's just a connection on their end. Maybe our neighborhood doesn't have Wi-Fi, but down the street does. I mean, along that lines doesn't make a bit of sense when it comes to, you know, the connectivity of the world and why they would only have that just doesn't make sense. So yes, that is a good fix right there so far. So I'm gonna go ahead and read what's on my screen though, and because it popped up as I was pausing, and this says this is literally an entire scene where they say communications are down between kingdoms, and it's immediately contradicted 2 seconds later. So even in the series, they contradict themselves about the scenes. So yeah, either way, let's let him continue and play.
There's been communication between them, clearly, even with Vale, whose things have been down. And when the tower does go down in that one location, again, we'll use Vale as an example, scrolls in that area can still function as short-range radios and phones that can get a decent distance, but not enough to reach one of the other major towers. So you can still have people in the same area, generally connected, but not on the broader scale with the rest of the world. Next up is Dust, which is generally unchanged, though it should be clarified that Dust is simply a non-magic power source that produces a number of different effects that are elemental in nature, and that it effectively replaces the oil in this setting.
Pause. Dang. I was hoping to keep it on screen with what he had there for a second, but as soon as I paused, it went to something else. But nonetheless, I see where we're going now with this. We're not necessarily tackling the lore as in the story lore, but the lore as in the elements that make up this world, such as, like I was thinking in the beginning, dust and the communication towers, auras and semblance. And we're going to be tackling those first and fixing those first, which makes sense. And yeah, he's talking about dust now, which they're, primarily going to work the same, which is okay. I get it. Cool. Let it work about the same. So yeah, okay. I like where we're going with this because I really didn't want to change like historical lore of the show just in general right away. I mean, let's change the lore of the story like with volume 1 and change little things here and there and go from there. That's, that's what I say. Either way, though, let's continue and play.
It should also be mentioned it can be manipulated with aura, and it can be infused with the body, but at significant risk to the owner. But other than that, nothing really major changing there to what it is. Alright, now we're reaching the big stuff, because we're on Grimm, and the Grimm themselves don't make any sense from point A to point B. So let's give them some more meat to them. In my rework, they are in fact monsters that are attracted to negative emotions, but only in closer proximities to the prey. Essentially, it's a more efficient prey location device. This range expands with age, but the older a Grimm gets, the wiser it is to human behavior and tends to avoid humanity until it either needs to or wants to strike. It could be used also as an explanation for Salem's existence, a Grimm that has lived so long that it became a key organizer with grand ambition to wipe out humans instead of just killing at random. Grimm now don't just disappear in a puff of smoke, they actually do leave trophies behind, in the form of bones. And the bones are used to determine the difficulty of the kill for hunters who need to cash in on the reward, for scientific purposes in studying Grimm and Grimm anatomy, and as decoration, as you can see throughout the series of mounted heads and such. The idea of characters just making copies of heads just is head-scratching. They have bones, why not just have the bones leave behind? It doesn't make any sense to have them evaporate with the rest of the Grimm.
Balls. Okay, so far his little changes, I like the little changes that he's making so far, such as like with the Grimm here, they still feed off of negative emotions and they're attracted to negative emotions, but not quite on such a wide ranging scale. Like, they're not going to come from 5 miles away just because they sense that you had one little negative emotion or something like that, which they don't mean any negative emotions. Like, I think they more mean ongoing negativity, such as fear and stuff like that. But condensed it down into a smaller area. Granted, I don't know the actual distance of the radius of the whole thing before, but now, or well, not now, but with his, it'd probably be like, I don't know, for us in America, I would say probably the size of a Walmart parking lot or something like that. I mean, I know those vary in size, but that's in my head. That's the size that I'm thinking. So, or maybe the size of a Walmart. I don't know. But sounds like a good idea to me because you can't just have them randomly just migrating from place to place. I mean, it just, yeah, there needs to be, you need to be able to create some distance and be able to get away from them a little easier than just them following you the whole time. I don't know. What he's doing is making sense to me so far. So let's continue and play.
And it's actually kind of a cool idea. Another big change is the absolutely ass-backwards statement that they don't hunt anyone other than humans. And then they do have skirmishes with wildlife. Yeah, we're just outright nixing that entire thing, and we're just saying they don't actively seek out other prey than humans, but skirmishes with other fauna are not unusual. Another big difference is we're establishing that as they grow older, a Grimm may evolve into new shapes and forms in order to suit certain needs. This seems to take the form of a few general configurations that can be easily labeled, such as Beowulfs and Ursi, but some Grimm become very specified and unique thanks to their storied history of violence and environment, just like that weird horse thing whose name I can't pronounce. The final point I would like to establish about the Grimms are about the nature of their origins and how no one in the setting, I mean no one, know where they come from. Except maybe Ozpin and Salem, but there'll be like the mysterious, like, people that know everything type thing. But regardless, everyone else, no one knows where the Grimm come from. And as a consequence, a number of different beliefs and approaches have developed around that. For example, there are religious beliefs that believe that some kind of malevolent god, the younger brother, created them to destroy humanity and to fight with an older god. From a scientific perspective, though, they are not seen as digesting any kind of food, and theory has gone out that the Grimm somehow subsist on the chaos they bring, or on the negative emotions they are so attracted to, though research in that field has been difficult to determine because how do you measure the calorie intake of negative emotions?
Balls. Okay, so yeah, we know more about the Grimm in later volumes, but I see what he's saying. Well, then again, I'm trying to figure out because I know he's got two different series of this. He's got fixing RWBY, and then he's also got remastered fixing RWBY as well. So I don't know if I'm getting the remastered versions because what I seen right there, he had, like 8 to 9 volumes of intros within his intro. And that sounds like to me that he knows all the history, which means there would be some history in his head about the Grimm, and that the gods, the one god also made these Grimm. Maybe I'm confusing stuff too. I know we had the one god, the god of light, make, humans and stuff like that, but then I think the other god tried to create something, but ended up creating something of destruction, which was the Grimm. Maybe I'm also getting stuff confused a little bit, but to be fair, it has been quite a while since I've watched like volume 6, 7, and 8, and 9, and all that. I mean, the last volume I watched was volume 10. What? Oh, wait, no, not volume 10. What am I thinking? They haven't had volume 10 yet. The last volume I watched was volume 9, of course. And then we even still got some more information in volume 9. I've got to rewatch this whole flipping series But either way, yeah, we know more about the Grimm. We know a little bit of their history. And yeah, maybe Salem helped create some of them. I don't know. Right now, I feel like I'm rambling, so I'm going to just shut up and hit this play button. So, play.
It's that sort of question you ask. And speaking of scientific approach, let's move on to aura. Because holy crap did I have a field day with aura. Now, of course, one of the biggest problems with this show is that we are never explicitly told how aura works, and our own observations of how aura works seem inconsistent with how it probably should work, with other moments where it works in different ways.
Balls. Okay, so aura, even at the volume that we're at now, we're waiting on volume 10 for like the last 2 years at this point. Aura still is extraordinarily inconsistent with this show, and that's something they need to fix. And hopefully they could fix it with, well, not they, but hopefully he can give us a fix that is good and that we can kind of use his headcanon a little bit. Granted, I know everything that he's going to say isn't like an end all be all fix for everything, and we could just lump it all into it and have headcanon versions of this stuff in the show, because there is others, there's other official things happening with the show. But hopefully he can have a consistent little, fix for this. And maybe in our head we could just be like, you know what? That's how aura works. It's just broken right now. Maybe sometimes the aura just isn't around. I don't know. Let's find out what he tells us. Play.
So, I've decided to sit down and actually create rules for aura that make fucking sense and can still apply to most situations in the series. First and foremost, it is an energy produced by the body, but scientifically no one knows where it comes from. So while science is still studying it, there is philosophical belief connecting the idea of aura to the very soul. Now, how aura is unlocked still happens very much like it does in the actual show, with someone who has aura having to unlock the aura of a weaker individual. But I'm also adding on the caveat that sometimes, through dramatic circumstance, the aura is also unlocked in order to protect that person in their time of dire need. Now, aura functions in a very important way as a defensive buffer between damage and the user. It is effectively a thin force field of energy that dampens impact from all forms of damage and heals the user, though to the extent of which the user is healed or protected by the aura varies upon the individual. It depletes with active use and being abused, with the user that runs out of aura entering a weakened state that leaves them vulnerable to attack. Users can willingly turn it on and off, and most people only really activate it when in a high-risk environment. Now, scientifically, aura is measured using two metrics: durability under stress and duration without stress, the former being listed with a letter grade and the latter being measured with a time, leading to a designation like A20. In the past, there were lengthy tests that were used to measure a person's aura, typically putting the user under stress, but in the modern age, technology can quickly and painlessly measure the rate of someone's aura.
Balls. Okay, okay. So it sounds like to me that he's primarily keeping it the same, with the exception of there being scientists, studying all this stuff and actually figuring out how stuff works. But he's primarily, seemingly, so far, keeping aura roughly the same, because that's primarily how it works. You got to unlock it. Stressful situations causes it to unlock. You know, I don't know about the on off thing. That the person who with the aura. I don't know if that's a change of his. I think that's a change of his, where they can just turn it on and off depending on if they need it or not. That might be a change, which it wouldn't be a bad change, but it wouldn't necessarily be a game-changing change either. And I know, granted, it would be a good change. It would be a game-changing change if someone were to, I don't know, forget to, bring their aura up as they're fighting. That might, put some, kinks in people's little, you know, battle plans. That's what I was trying to think of. But for the most part, it sounds like it's still the same because, of course, with duration of time and you in a fight and it gets used up because you're in that fight, all of it sounds the same so far. So, because it works primarily that way. You get in a fight, your aura is depleted, you take one big hit, you might have lost all your aura. That's primarily how it works. Now, sometimes you take a bump and your aura's gone, and that's kind of weird. It's just a bump. But then at other times you get thrown across the room and you still have like a full aura. See, that's what needs to be fixed. But what he's doing so far doesn't really fix anything. It keeps everything the same. Let's continue.
Aura. So, for example, the lowest aura on record would probably be like an A0, which is below 100 minutes of sustained time and with the weakest durability rating. The highest recorded one would be something like T43, which has the highest durability rating and lasts for 4,300 minutes. An average score would be something like J14, which would basically have a nice average amount of resistance and last for about 1,400 minutes unabused. Now, the overall amount of aura that's left in a fighter is determined by how many minutes of their aura can be sustained without it having to shut off to recover and without further abuse. In addition, minutes can be burned by a user in order to perform high-intensity acrobatics or other such impressive physical feats, such as hitting harder. The intensity of this effect is usually in direct correlation with the durability of the user's aura. Typically, this type of information is generally just background information for writers to keep in mind, but it's used to determine things like non-training team composition and tournament matchings. There would be two primary types of tournament rankings. Weight class, where people with the same durability score of aura are actually paired up together and tasked with depleting a fixed number of minutes of aura from their opponent. This is typically used in sports such as boxing or MMA, which focus more on form and power. Then there's the freeform type, where matches are mostly unregulated and opponents are tasked to reduce a percentile of their opponent's aura. This is used mostly by hunters and combat professionals to better reflect the extreme advantages and disadvantages of individuals in an actual life or death situation.
Balls. Okay, so now I see how he's trying to change it a little bit more. Rather than the hits that you take necessarily are what brings it down more, but it's the time that you're using it is more the fix that he's wanting to go for. And I don't know. Honestly, I understand where he's going with it. Like, Shopkeep would have the lowest, when it comes to aura and stuff like that. Because, let's be real, Shopkeep is he's just Shopkeep. He doesn't need like a high intensity battle strategy for aura or nothing. Although it seems like how much he gets robbed, he could use it. But still, that's a whole nother matter. I see where he's going with it. It's more on a time scale type thing, but at the same time, feel like it's getting a little convoluted with all of it because then you're now during tournaments, which it makes sense, honestly. It makes sense to have everyone in their own SIPA weight class thing when it comes to, aura class, pretty much is what you would say. That makes sense during a tournament, but at the same time, it just feels convoluted because you could also use up more of the time frame that you have on your aura if you're doing more strenuous stuff or if you're getting, hard hits in a battle. For me, honestly, this is where I might disagree with him. I mean, for me, aura, although it hasn't been fully explained and it's not very consistent, aura pretty much it's it's a thinly veiled force field around you to protect you, and you take enough damage and your aura's gone. It should be a damage based type of thing. Should there be some more consistency with it? Yeah, but I don't feel like it needs to be so convoluted that it has to have different aura classes and you have just all these 15 different types of things. I'm going to be real. I watch RWBY for the story. I don't watch it for the structure of what aura is. But we're here to just goof off. So like I said in the beginning, I'm not knocking him or anything he says. I either agree or disagree. It is what it is. Either way, though, we need to continue. And
You don't get a free pass just because you have more or less aura. It's basically what you can do with what aura you have. With aura all fixed up, we move on to Semblance, which is unlocked alongside the user's aura and has a tendency to reflect the user's personality, which again leads credence to the philosophical belief that aura and semblances are connected to the user's soul. Now, the semblance has a primary effect that is usually incredibly useful to the user and sometimes like a superpower, such as RWBY's speed, Yang's ability to get hit a whole bunch and then hit back harder, and Blake's shadow clone ability. But then there's also a secondary trait that's usually ineffective or simply aesthetic. Things like Yang's fire, RWBY's rose petals, Blake's kind of shadowy effect, and the kind of color of Weiss's glyphs. A semblance is considered a combination of this effect and this trait. While traits and effects can be repeated among different individuals, typically semblances as a whole are unique in that they are a different trait and a different effect for each individual person. So theoretically, you could have someone with Yang's fire, but RWBY's speed, and they are considered a unique semblance instead of Yang's Super Saiyan fire and RWBY's rose petal speed. Now, when a semblance is unlocked, the user feels via their aura how they're supposed to use their semblance, though it very often takes a while before the user can grasp how to best utilize it, be it thanks to a lack of understanding of what these new feelings are, or simply due to the complex nature of the semblance.
Okay, so for semblance, really for me, I feel like nothing too much should change. And I've honestly never, correlated the whole, semblance trait thing with the semblance itself. Yeah, okay. I do get it though, with Yang, you got her fire. I never correlated the two of them though for some weird reason in my head. And with, RWBY, you've got her petals that float behind her as she's, zoom through, doing her little super speed teleportation type thing that she has going on. I've never equated the two as being a part of each other. So that's a good thing to know because those are, they kind of go hand in hand, but at the same time, aren't there some people that you can't really see a trait like with old girl with the camera that her name is slipping me for some reason. I'm sure y'all let me know in the comments down below, but her semblance is taking pictures and being able, take pictures of other people's semblance and then be able to use that semblance because she took a picture of it. I mean, I don't know what her trait would be then. Is it the camera that she's carrying? I'm not sure. So I don't, it's a little, you don't have to have the trait with the semblance in order to have the semblance. I don't know. Either way, though, the semblance can pretty much stay, this how they are now. It's a superpower that you get and unlock eventually. That's my way of fixing it. I don't know. But either way, let's continue and find out what he says, because we only got like 3.5 minutes. So let's do it. And
itself. The final topic I'm going to land on is hunters, and what their place in the world actually is. They are trained in order to fight Grimm, be it out in the wilderness or as town and city guards. Hunters who act in the wilds also behave as emergency guards and relief workers during Grimm horde attacks on outlier villages. They can be hired on as police attachés or by private individuals for mercenary needs. They need not be tethered to the state, though most do often align themselves with one of the kingdoms. And being as up until Volume 4, this entire show was about kids going to school in order to become hunters, I gave special thought to what kind of curriculum hunters would have being trained in their combat schools. So here's a number of classes that RWBY and the gang would be taking while at Beacon. Hunter Regulation and Law, Sparring and Team Building, Grimm Studies, World History, Survival, Advanced Weapon Building, Mercenary Economics, Weightlifting, Psychology, Sociology, Infrastructure, Repair and Construction. These classes are important to building up the core tenets of
balls. Okay. That's actually a really good idea. You know, focus on their classes and show them in the classes more, showing that they're learning about what it means to actually do what you're doing. Because we get someone like Crow and Winter, and they're older, obviously, than, you know, everyone in the school. So what makes them more, you know, they've obviously graduated, so they would have knowledge like what he's saying right here with, you know, mercenary economics. You know, if you're going to be out there on the field, you're going to need to know these simple economic skills to make you some money. You're going to have to know how to, you know, rebuild towns with the infrastructure type stuff. You're going to psychology. You're going to need to know these things. Sociology, you know, the study of people, how people interact within a group, and that makes sense to me. So I agree with that one. They should be showing them in their classes more and showing what they're learning. So, yeah, hunters and huntresses at school should be shown learning something. Granted, no, I don't want that to be the whole story, but that could be little side things that we could see along the way. Either way, though, let's continue and play.
The hunters, whose jobs are to go out, protect lives, and help rebuild in the face of a monstrous threat. And hopefully all these elements will come together in order to make a more believable and realistic world. Now, that's how I would have fixed a lot of the background lore in this show and keep it consistent, believable, and interesting. But I also recognize that I myself am not infallible as much as I wish I were. So if you have any suggestions, ideas, or concepts, please leave them in the comments below. If you have critiques upon my personal changes, please leave them below. I would love to hear your thoughts on this, and I'll be fair to defend my stances, but if you have a good idea, I may very well tweak my entire rewrite in order to accommodate such a good idea. And before someone mentions it, yes, there's no mention of the maidens, of the silver-eyed warriors, or the gods. This is a purposeful choice. I decided to leave them out because I felt they were more relevant in the actual sections of the volumes they were.
Pause, whatever word I'm looking for. I agree with that. The gods and the maidens and all that, that is something that necessarily isn't lore that he's talking about right now. That is lore for the story itself, which means when he gets into the volumes and talking about those, that's when he would be then making changes to that. So I get that. So yeah, I mean, it's not bad what he's doing, and a lot of it's still the same. And you know what? Before I continue, I'm just going to let him finish out what he's saying here. It's only like a minute and a half, and then I'll just give my afterthoughts, because I was almost about to jump into afterthoughts, but I don't want to do that. Maybe he's got something else to say. So let me let him finish, and then I'll go ahead with my afterthoughts. And play.
Present for. So volumes 1, 2, and 3 will cover those different topics individually. Enough to pad out the runtime a little bit on those videos, but at the same time, I feel those are topics more localized to those particular videos themselves. So please, keep an eye open for it when I finally get around to doing Volume 1. I don't know when, but I'll get to it. Until then, please, remember to like the video, comment down below, and subscribe. It's been a wonderful time having you all as my audience, and I'll catch you all on the flip side.
It says there's a minute left.
Hey there! If you like the video,
so
please hit that like.
This is going to sound horrible, but I'm not going to have that continuing, because honestly, that's just the end card scenes for the video. And I don't even know if y'all can see what I'm seeing. So, yes, afterthoughts. Okay. I like some of the changes and stuff like the aura. I heard his changes, I get it, but at the same time, they feel convoluted. I understand that once you lay it out and whatnot like that, that it makes all the sense in the world. But at the same time, this is something, I feel like when it comes to aura, we just need to know, hey, it's there, it's protecting them. To what extent? Nobody knows. But we're there for the story. We need to know more about the semblances and how they work, but we don't necessarily need to know full on aura, like, okay, this person is this level. This isn't the comic books where we need to know, like, oh, Magneto, he's an Omega level mutant, or, like Iceman, he's an Omega level mutant. And we don't need to know the different degrees of what type of, aura that one person has. Yes, it makes sense for, like, tournaments, like he already said, but at the same time, that doesn't make sense either, honestly, because these are teenagers. Why would they even be fighting in a tournament? That's a whole nother matter for a whole nother time, though. I'm not going to harp on the whole teenagers and being, in a Greco-Roman style battle out there for people's entertainment. That's a whole nother matter, because this is just ultimately, at the end of the day, animation, and it's just fun to sit back and be like, you know what? This could be fixed this way, because everything else he said, I could primarily agree with, but the aura, as broken as it is in the show itself, eh, I can live with it being broken. It doesn't need to be fixed to that degree. And as far as semblance, yeah, it could be fixed to a little bit of a degree with knowing 100% of what somebody's semblance is. Although that's something that I would like to see changed, is the semblance. Such as, yes, okay, there's different various ways that they can use their semblances, and they've shown creative things in the show, but like a mutant power, like Iceman, he can literally, in the beginning of comic books, his power was to, like, just create, ice. He's Iceman, he can create ice and stuff. But through the years and decades, it's gotten to the point where Iceman is so freaking powerful that he could take the molecules that are in the air and just freeze that. He could freeze the liquid in your body. He's literally that powerful. Like Magneto with the power of magnetism. There is so much you could do with magnetism, and I feel like a semblance like Ruby's, yeah, it's short, it's like teleportation slash, super speed from short distances. There's more you can do with that other than just simply, oh, we got to get over here, so let's like that. There's so much more you can do with it, such as bounce. I think we've seen it on the show, like bounce off the Grimms while you're fighting, with the animation with your scythe, as well as you're cutting the heads off these, Beowulfs and stuff like that. Granted, I think that's probably why I'm remembering it. I think we've seen that. But there's so much more you can do with all these semblances, I feel like, other than what we've seen. So something like that, you can tweak people's semblances, such as, like, Yang's, where she can get hit a lot and then explode on somebody. I'm sure there's a way to do that to the point where it can create like a supernova or something. I don't know. Either way, there's ways you could do stuff. I like what he's saying so far. I like how it's, coming along, and the little tweaks that he's making here and there, like the first tweak he made with, oh, I don't even remember fully what tweak he did actually make, but I can get it real fast right here and just kind of, oh, like the communication towers. That's a common sense tweak to make. So, yeah, obviously you want everything to still be connected in some way. So, yeah, other than that, though, depending on how this all performs, and then we can continue on to part 2 of his series, and then part 3 and 4, and just keep on going from there and there, just keep on with where he goes with it. So I like what I'm hearing so far. It's not bad changes, a little convoluted in some areas, but makes sense in others. So, yeah, hopefully I didn't say something that sounds like I'm critiquing him, because that is nowhere near what I'm trying to do. And I know I've said that multiple times. I'm sorry, I repeat myself a lot sometimes. Either way, though, I've been sitting here for like 45 minutes and recording. I need to get up, stand up, stretch it out, and all that good stuff. Call the wife for the evening and all that good stuff. So, that's what I'm about to do. It's y'all's turn now. Hit that like, tickle to subscribe. Don't be texting and driving. And as Mr. Rogers always says.
I like you just the way you are.